Well, looks like someone trying to play ball with Putin again. The U.S. imposed sanctions on Russia over cyber attacks. The U.S. has announced sanctions against Russia in response to what it says are cyber attacks and other hostile acts. Joe Biden promised a tougher approach to Russia. Hmm. The measures, which target dozens of Russian entities and officials, aim to deter Russia's harmful foreign activities, the White House said. The statement says Russian intelligence was behind last year's massive SolarWinds hack and accused Moscow of interference in the 2020 election. Russia denies all allegations and says it will respond in kind. The sanctions announced on Thursday are detailed in an executive order signed by President Joe Biden. They come at a tense time for relations between the two countries. Last month, the U.S. targeted 7 Russian officials and more than a dozen government entities over the poisoning of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny. Russia says it was not involved. In a call to Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday, why call him the president? He's the Russian dictator. He ain't elected. He took it. Mr. Biden vowed to defend U.S. national interests firmly while proposing a meeting with Mr. Putin to find areas where the two countries could work together. What does the Biden administration say? According to Thursday's White House statement, the new sanctions show the U.S. it will impose costs in a strategic and economically impactful manner on Russia if it continues to destabilize international action. It reaffirms the administration's view that the Russian government is behind cyber attacks as we try to undermine the conduct of free and fair democratic elections in the U.S. and allied nations. It specifically blames Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, the SVR, for a SolarWinds attack, which gave cyber criminals access to 18,000 government and private company networks. The last sanctions target 32 entities and officials accused of trying to influence the 2020 U.S. presidential election and other acts of disinformation. 10 diplomats are being expelled. The executive order also bars U.S. financial institutions from purchasing ruble-denominated bonds from June. President Biden later said he chose to proportionate in his response. I was clear with President Putin that we could go further, but I chose not to do so, he told reporters. The Biden administration is trying to tread a careful line. U.S. officials want to impose costs for a range of unacceptable behavior from Moscow and deter further acts. They also want to signal that they are going to take a tougher line than the Trump administration. But they also say they do not want to see a downward spiral in relations. The message they have is that their response is resolute but proportionate. The SolarWinds cyber espionage campaign was a primary concern. To maximize the impact, they have combined response to this with sanctions over election interference and other issues. Diplomatic expulsions and sanctions against individuals will largely be shrugged off by Moscow as expected. The financial sanctions regarding the Russian sovereign debt are a step up though. The U.S. has published a huge amount of detail about Russian intelligence activities ranging from front companies involved in spreading disinformation to Russian tech companies, allegedly supporting its intelligence services. The hope will be that it also makes it harder for Russians to operate, but past experience suggests that all is unlikely to deter the Kremlin. What was the reaction from Moscow? Shortly after the sanctions were announced, Russia's foreign ministry called them hostile steps, which dangerously raised the temperature of confrontation. Such aggressive conduct will of course get a decisive response, the statement added. The U.S. ambassador has been called to the foreign ministry. The EU, NATO, and the UK have all issued statements in support of the U.S. measures. Why are things so bad between Russia and the USA? In his first foreign policy speech in February, Mr. Biden made it clear he planned on stab to Russia. The days of the United States rolling over in face of Russia's aggressive actions are over, he said. The statement was in stark contrast to the stance adopted by Mr. Biden's President Donald Trump, who rarely criticized Mr. Putin. In a report last month, U.S. intelligence agencies concluded that Russia president has probably directed online efforts to help Donald Trump win a second term as U.S. president. Well, if that's the case. He did do a good job. The U.S. has also warned Russia against aggressive actions in Ukraine. Russia has beefed up its military presence in the border area. That's maybe it for this article. Oh boy, things about to get pretty interesting pretty soon. But what's Biden gonna do? How is he gonna have a conference with Putin if he can go up no stairs? Man, this if this dude try to go up the stairs, man. Jeez. Well, that's it for maybe a rambling. See you next time.